Hello, everyone. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Welcome to our webinar. We will be starting very shortly here. I want to make sure I give everyone another minute at least to log in. We do have a pretty packed house today. A lot of great information. We are joined here with Kate Mullen from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And again, I will be starting the webinar in 1 minute. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Welcome to our Understanding Student Loan and Applying for Loan Forgiveness webinar. It is September 21st, and we will get started right now. Thank you again for taking the time out to join us. A lot of really great information in this webinar. I do want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, for this webinar, the webinar is being recorded and it will be published onto the DFPI's YouTube channel. There's a link right there. Your microphone and your video has been disabled for this webinar, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them into the Q&A section of the Zoom. And I have some team members ready to help answer the questions, or we could save the questions to the very end when we have a dedicated Q&A section. Also, these slides will be made available to everyone who registered for this webinar. We will email a follow-up email to everyone, which includes a link to the YouTube video as well as the slides. Okay, so just want to review really quickly some of the things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some important student loan reminders. We're going to talk about the different types of student loans out there. Not a comprehensive list, just a broad list of the most popular student loans. We're also, Kate Mullen from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is going to talk about the Biden-Harris administration debt relief plan, as well as the public service loan forgiveness, and also give a lot of different information in terms of deadlines that you should be aware of. And at the very end, we will have a Q&A section, the questions and answers. Please make sure to submit your questions through the Zoom's Q&A feature so that we can answer them. Okay. All right. So important student loan reminders. The public service loan forgiveness waiver deadline is the end of next month, so October 31st. From what I understand, that's it. If you are not able to get your waiver completed or done, you're kind of out of luck. But this is the great news. This is a good thing. The Department of Education will maintain a record if you complete all the steps of the public service loan forgiveness help tool on or before the deadline, right? So basically you get started with the help tool, you're moving through it, and then you get to the print phase, and then you print it out, and the next step you need to do is get the signatures, basically the employer verification forms. You need to get all that done. If you're not able to submit your entire application, so long as you complete the help tool and get to the employer verification process, you're okay. The Department of Education is going to still recognize your application. Again, what you really want to do is get started sooner than later, right? Don't wait till the deadline to do the help tool. Get started on it right now. Best place to do it is to go to studentaid.gov /PSLF, and you just get started on the help tool. Also, loan consolidation. If you need to consolidate your loan, you really need to get started right now because that process takes time as well. Okay, student loan repayment pause ends at the end of this year. So the announcement last month is that the student loan repayment pause is being extended towards all the way till the end of this year, which is December 31st. And that's it. After that, we're going to have to start paying. I mean, I'm a student loan borrower myself. We're going to have to start paying our student loans. So things that you need to do: make sure you update your contact information with your student loan servicer. So if you moved or things have changed, contact your student loan servicer, let them know your new contact information, or update your contact information. Also go to studentaid.gov and update your contact information. You don't want to be caught off guard, right? Especially if they need to send you a notice that your student loan repayment is going to restart. This is the new amount. And, this is when you need to, this is the deadline when you have to submit your payment, that kind of a thing, right? Also, if your loans are in default, if your student loans are in default, the Fresh Start program will begin January 1, 2023. I don't know, have too much information about it, but I did put a link here in the slides. So, if you do have loans in default, you want to get ready to handle those, especially since a lot of defaulted loans are going to get, get put back into good standing. And also more updates to the Biden-Harris administration's student debt relief plan, the big announcement that happened last month. More updates are going to come soon, so be sure to subscribe to the DFPI's newsletter. Here's a link right here, dfpi.ca.gov/subscribe, so that you stay informed about the newest information that becomes available. Okay, jumping right into it. Types of student loans. Many of you are aware of this, some of you are not, which is fine. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. There are so many different types of student loans out there, but I just wanted to go over some of the most popular, I don't want to say popular, probably the most prevalent student loans that people have. And then we're going to talk about them and how they kind of qualify for debt relief or public service loan forgiveness. So yeah, in the next couple slides, we're going to dive deep into them. All right, this is one that we see a lot of, and it has a lot of different issues with it. The Federal Family Education Loan, also known as FFEL loans. It's a program that worked with private lenders to provide educational loans guaranteed by the federal government to students. The FFEL program stopped originating loans in 2010. So some of the questions we get is my student loan a FFEL loan? So to figure out if your student loan is a FFEL loan, you want to go to studentaid.gov, just log in, and it should give you all the details about your loan. Are my FFEL loans eligible for Biden's student debt relief plan? So all borrowers who have federally owned FFEL loans are eligible for the federal debt relief, right? As well as the public service loan forgiveness. Borrowers with commercially held FFEL loans or privately held FFEL loans may not be. If you are in default, if your FFEL loan is in default, then it would be eligible for loan forgiveness, also debt relief. Now, if you consolidate and that's the next question here, can I change my FFEL loan into a direct loan, also known as a consolidation loan? Yes, you can consolidate your FFEL loan, to become a direct consolidation loan. And direct consolidation loans are eligible for debt relief and public service loan forgiveness. So that's something you want to do, especially with the public service loan forgiveness waiver deadline coming soon. If you know you have a FFEL loan, you want to make sure you consolidate it, especially if it's a commercially held FFEL loan. You want to consolidate it into a direct consolidation loan so that it is eligible for public service loan forgiveness. And I do want to let some of my panelists here know. We have some great panelists here who are experts in this. If I'm wrong anywhere, just jump in and correct me, or feel free to add more information. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, FFEL loans that are joint and spousal consolidation loans. These are a little bit more tricky. These kinds of loans these kinds of loans was created to consolidate married individuals' student loans into one. And so the question is, can spousal FFEL consolidation loans be reconsolidated into direct consolidation loans? And the answer is no, not at this time. I believe there is legislation going through, federal legislation going through to kind of address this, but I don't have enough information to talk more about it. Okay, so next slide. Okay, types of federal loans. By the way, all this information comes from the studentaid.gov, the U.S. Department of Education's website. There are basically two types of Stafford loans. These are kind of the more popular loans out there. Sorry, apologize for that. So we have direct subsidized loans and direct unsubsidized loans. There's basically one significant difference between the two. So direct subsidized loans, the interest rates don't start accumulating until after you stop attending school. For unsubsidized loans, the borrower is responsible for paying interest as soon as they accept the loan. If the borrower does not pay the interest while they are in school, the loans could be deferred, or the interest rates could be deferred. However, the interest will continue to accrue. So this is how they'll accumulate and basically compound. And this is how student loans, especially if you're in school a very long time and you have unsubsidized loans, this is how student loans can balloon out of control, especially if, like I said, if you're not paying the interest on them. And then direct consolidation loans is basically, taking multiple loans and consolidating it into one loan, known as a consolidation loan. All right, so we get a lot of questions about direct plus loans, mostly parent plus loans. So parent plus loans were federal loans that parents of dependents and undergrads could use to pay for college. One of the big questions we get is, as a parent plus borrower, can I transfer responsibility for paying the loan to my child? The answer is no. A direct plus loan made by a parent cannot be transferred to a child. The responsibility is to the parent, or whoever signed for the loan. Can my parent plus loan ever be forgiven, canceled, or discharged? There are very specific, very, very specific circumstances. And I put a link there that goes directly to the studentaid.gov website. It gives you all the details about how a parent plus loan could be forgiven or canceled or discharged. Does the parent plus loan qualify for debt relief? The answer is yes. Parent plus loans held by the Department of Education are eligible for debt forgiveness, according to senior Biden officials. And then, of course, we have grad plus loans. So grad plus loans available to graduates, professionals going into higher education programs. The big question we get is, do grad plus loans qualify for debt relief and or forgiveness? The answer is yes, they do. Okay. All right, Perkins Loans. So Perkins Loans is a low interest loan for undergraduate and graduate students with exceptional financial needs. Perkins Loans were originated and serviced by participating schools and repaid to the schools. So under federal law, the authority for schools to make new Perkins loans ended September 2017. There's a link to Perkins loan cancellation. It's a whole webpage talking about how you can have your Perkins loan canceled. The big question we get is, can I consolidate my Perkins loan? The answer is yes. You can take your Perkins loan and consolidate into a direct consolidation loan, making it eligible for debt relief, public service loan forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera. Does my Perkins loan qualify for the debt relief? It really depends. If your Perkins loan is serviced by the Department of Education or in default, so default management collection systems. So basically, if your Perkins loan is held by the federal government, then it should qualify for the president's student debt relief. But again, I'm not telling you what to do, but you may be better off consolidating your loan just look at your different options, log in to studentaid.gov, and use the payment repayment tool to find out what option works best for you. Does my Perkins loan qualify for public service loan forgiveness and its waiver? Again, it depends on your situation. You must, in that situation, if you're seeking public service loan forgiveness, you must consolidate your Perkins loan into a direct consolidation loan. So direct consolidation loan is the loan to make to that is qualified for public service loan forgiveness and definitely qualified for the president's student debt relief. Okay, and again, all these resources, all this information is taken directly from the studentaid.gov website. The slides will all have links to this more information. So once it's available, click on it, read more, get more information, get your questions answered. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on all these other types of loans. There are definitely a lot. There's a rabbit hole of other private loans that are available, right? I just want to highlight a few and then we'll kind of move on. ISA is also known as income shared agreements. Basically, funding from college where you would then repay based on your future salary, right? International students who don't qualify for federal student loans could have private loans as well. Some states and nonprofits offer private loans as well. Just a heads up, these types of loans are not qualified for public service loan forgiveness or what do you call it? Or the student debt relief, because they're private loans. So there's more. I'm not going to spend too much time on all of them, but they are all considered private loans. And here's a great chart provided by Kate from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Kate, did you want to talk about how to use this chart? It's a really great chart which explains eligibility for debt relief.
Sure. Like who just said, it basically just lets you know, depending on what type of loans you have, which of the debt relief options that are kind of most current you're eligible for. There are, of course, lots of other debt relief options, depending on, if you have a disability or other things. But basically the takeaway here is if you have a direct loan, you will qualify for all these programs. By direct loan, I mean direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized. Those are loans you borrowed for yourself while you were an undergrad, or grad plus loans. If you have a Parent Plus loan, you may need to take additional steps depending on which programs you are trying to take advantage of. Same thing for federally held FFEL and Perkins loans. And then if you have a corporate held FFEL loan or Perkins loan, which most of them are, you will need to consolidate if you want to take advantage of these. However, Perkins loans do have some of their own loan forgiveness programs, so you would want to think very carefully before consolidating out of that, because you might be, that might work out to more of your advantage to keep the Perkins loan. Unfortunately, if you have a FFEL spousal consolidation loan, at this point, there is no path for making yourself eligible for these. And again, private loans, whether they were always a private loan or you originally had a federal loan and then refinance it into a private loan, there's no way to convert them into a federal loan. So unfortunately, none of these forgiveness options will be available to you.
Okay, and thank you, Kate. It's a great chart. I'm going to talk to my team about being able to share this on social media. Really love it. Does a great job of quickly explaining, eligibility. All right, so let me go to the next slide. So, after all this information, you're probably wondering, what kind of loan do I have, or loans do I have? You have a lot of different options, right? The first option, probably easiest, is just log in to studentaid.gov. Under the My Aid drop-down menu, you could click on it, find out more information about the different type of loans you might have and who owns your loan. The other option you have is to contact your student loan servicer, right? If your loan doesn't show up in the studentaid.gov, it's possible it's a private loan. So you may want to contact your student loan servicer. Basically, the servicer is whoever you're paying your loan back to. You want to make sure to contact them, maybe ask them about more details about the loan. You can also contact the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, the DFPI. We have a student loan servicing unit, and we also have a student loan servicing OBUDS person. That her name is Selena Damian. She actually is on the panel today answering questions. Her email address is right here. You can send her your questions, and you can see if she can help you about your student loans. I would definitely recommend you go to studentaid.gov and get more details if you can first. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, also has an email address right there. It's students@cfpb.gov, which you can email. And then finally, the U.S. Department of Education Office of Federal Student Aid has a really extensive contact webpage, lots of chat options and phone numbers, and also links to email addresses. I didn't want to flood the slide with all the different information, but if you go to that link right there, you can find out, especially if you need help, they'll direct you in the right place. Okay. All right. From here, I'd like to hand off to Kate Mullen from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Thanks. Yep. So before I go any further, I just want to clarify that I'm making this on behalf of the Bureau. However, it does not constitute any type of legal interpretation, guidance, or advice from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Any opinions or views that I state are my own. They're not responsible for anything that I say. And if there are any third-party resources included here, we're not endorsing that third party. Next slide, please. Okay, if you're not familiar with us, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is a mouthful, so we usually call it the CFPB, is a 21st century agency that implements and enforces federal consumer financial law. We are trying to ensure that markets for consumer financial products are fair, transparent, and competitive. So basically, we are a regulatory agency for any of the stuff that you might do with your money as just a normal person: bank accounts, credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, and of course, student loans as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to clarify some of the differences between PSLF and this Biden-Harris student debt relief, which you also might hear referred to as broad-based debt relief. So these are two programs that are in the news right now because there are, as Ku mentioned earlier on, special things going on with the waiver, and then the broad-based debt relief just being announced. However, they are separate programs with different requirements for who's eligible. So PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, just like it's in the name, it's only for borrowers who work now or have worked in the past for a qualifying public service employer. So for instance, if you work for a government agency at any level, federal, state, local, tribal, those all qualify. That would also include, for instance, public school teachers. If you work for a 503c nonprofit, those are the type of, if you work for a nonprofit hospital, those are the type of employers that will qualify you for this program. So the way this program works is you have to make 120 qualifying payments, and then the balance of your loans are forgiven. And it's 125 qualifying payments, which roughly could equal out to be 10 years. But we say 120 qualifying payments because they do not have to be consecutive. If you work for 5 years at a nonprofit hospital, you go for 2 years to a for-profit hospital, and then you switch back for another 5 years at the nonprofit hospital. At the end of that second 5-year stint, you will reach 120 qualifying payments, even though there was a 2-year break in the middle, and then you could apply to have your debt forgiven. Along the way, and I also want to clarify something that I've seen in the Q&A as I've been answering questions. When we talk about applying for PSLF, so there is an employer certification form that you have to fill out in order to make sure that your payments are actually do qualify. And you can fill that out incrementally along the way. So the 5 years that you're at that nonprofit hospital, you can fill one out every year. You could fill it out the first month you get hired before you even make a qualifying payment, just to have it on record that you were working at a qualifying employer. However, you won't actually get forgiven until you've reached the 120 qualifying payments. So when we're saying in the Q&A that you can apply at any time, that doesn't mean that you're going to get forgiveness before you've reached 120 qualifying payments, but it is in your favor to apply as you go because then your payments will be on record. And if there is some kind of discrepancy and the department or the servicer is saying, hey, these payments don't qualify and you think they should, you can handle that as you go instead of waiting until the end. And that can just really simplify things as far as getting people to sign papers and just, you remembering what happened. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Okay, so normally when the waiver is, when there isn't a waiver in effect, a qualifying payment, not only do you have to work for a qualifying employer, you also have to be making that payment on a direct loan with an income-driven repayment plan. However, a lot of people didn't get that message in the past. It wasn't clear to them. And so even though they were teaching, working in a nonprofit hospital, working for a government agency, working for a nonprofit, they didn't realize that they needed to have a different type of loan, that they needed to have a different type of repayment plan. So what the waiver that Kuwish is mentioning is supposed to do is basically make good on the spirit of the program, right? The program is meant to reward people for working these important public service jobs. So the point of the waiver is like, hey, if you in the past had 3 years of payments, you were working for that nonprofit hospital, but you had the wrong loan type, this is a chance for you to retroactively get credit for those payments, even though it was the wrong loan type. And so that's what the waiver is about. It's kind of like a limited period of time to say, that part of the rules wasn't so important. And so we're going to waive that and give you credit now for payments that might have been rejected in the past or may have been rejected in the past. Maybe you did apply in the past and they said, no way, you don't get credit for these payments. Under this waiver, you can now fill out that paperwork again, submit it, and get retroactive credit. That might require you, if the problem was that you didn't have a direct loan, that might require you to also consolidate your loan so that you do have a direct loan. The reason for that is that the government can only forgive loans that it is owed, right? If someone owes your mom money, you can't unilaterally tell that person they don't owe your mom money anymore unless they switch the debt over to you, basically. So you might also have to consolidate your loans if you have one of the loans that require consolidation. But the idea here is that if you were trying to hold up your end of the bargain by working one of these important public service jobs, and it was one of these details that kept you from getting credit, now is a chance to go back and get credit because they're temporarily waiving those rules. So that waiver expires October 31st. That is your last chance to go back and get credit for payments that usually wouldn't have counted. However, the program as a whole is not ending on October 31st. The program will continue after October 31st, and you can still get past credit for payments as long as they conform to all the rules. So let's say you've been for the past 5 years teaching in a public school. You have a direct loan, you're on an income-driven repayment plan, you just haven't been filling out your employer certification forms. When that waiver ends, that doesn't mean that you can still go back and get credit for those. The problem would be if you had been not following one of the rules, that the waiver period ending means you can't go back and get credit for those payments that usually wouldn't count. Hopefully that is helpful and not more confusing. Okay, separately from the PSLF program, which again is only for people working in these public service jobs, the Biden-Harris student debt relief, I've also heard people at FSA call it the broad-based debt relief. That is available to anyone who has a federally owned student loan, who also meets some certain income requirements. And that is just a straight up $10,000 or $20,000, depending on your Pell Grant history. That was just announced last month, and there will be an application opening next month to make that happen. Next slide, please.
Okay, thanks, Kate. I do want to add one thing here. In the slides, I've linked to the studentaid.gov webpage that talks more about these programs. So once you get the slides, you could just click on it and get more information about it. But fantastic. Thank you, Kate. Keep going.
Okay, so more information about this broad-based debt relief. So like I said, it's either $10,000 or $20,000. I'm going to go into even more detail about the requirements there in a second. That's also, they're extending the pause until December 31st, like who said earlier. And then they are working to announce a new income-driven repayment plan with much lower payment. So we've heard from people at the bureau where I work, we receive complaints from people that they still can't afford their IDR payment. And so hopefully this will help some of those people. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some of those, the eligibility that I said I was going to go into more detail about. So the first thing that you need to figure out when you're like, do I qualify for the $10,000 or $20,000? We need to look at your loan eligibility first. So again, the government can only forgive debts that are directly owed to it. So one way you can figure out if you have a federally owned loan, first of all, if your payments have been paused during the pandemic, then you have a federally owned loan. You're good there. If they haven't been, so you can go to studentaid.gov, and then you can check out whether the servicer name there starts with either direct, Department of Ed, or default management collection system. If it starts with any of those three phrases or words, then you have a federally owned loan and you are eligible. You don't have to consolidate. The other thing is whether it was dispersed before July 1st, 2022. So if you're in college right now, and it is possible that this relief will apply to you, but it would only apply to any loans that were dispersed before July 1st, 2022. Okay, so then income limits, like I mentioned, there are also income limits. What it boils down to is you had to have made, in either 2020 or 2021, you had to have made less than $125,000 if you file your taxes as a single person, or you had to make less than $250,000 if you file them married, file jointly. I simplified it here, but that also includes head of household. And the 125K limit applies to people who filed married filing single as well, I believe. So it just has to be one of those 2 years that you meet the income limit. So if you made $120,000 in 2020 and $130,000 in 2021, then you will still qualify because you met the income limit in 2020. Okay, and then the final question, so if you met the loan eligibility, you met the income limit, you're going to get something. Now it's figuring out if you're going to get up to $10,000 or up to $20,000. So then the final question here is, did you ever receive a Pell Grant? Pell Grants are given to low-income undergraduate students. So if you ever received even a single Pell Grant, then you are eligible for up to $20,000 in this relief. If you never received a Pell Grant, then you are eligible for up to $10,000. And the reason we say up to $20,000, up to $10,000, is because they won't give you more relief than what you currently owe. So if you have right now an $18,000 balance, you did receive at least one Pell Grant as an undergraduate student, they will, $18,000 is less than 20, they will discharge your entire balance, but you won't get like the extra $2,000 back. It's not like a refundable tax credit. Next slide, please. Okay, there are a bunch of frequently asked questions that I'll go through here. The first thing is, how will I know when the debt relief has been applied to my account? Your loan servicer will notify you, and they will give you some additional details. What happens next? So if you still have a balance after the relief, then you will have a new monthly payment recalculated for you, which should potentially reduce your monthly payment. Personally, I would add here, just if I were in this position, I would be looking at the loan simulator on FSA and thinking about, with your new balance, which repayment plan makes sense to you, taking into account, if you're pursuing PSLF, it has to be an IDR plan, et cetera. But that loan simulator will help you figure out what plan kind of helps you meet your own goals with your loans and with your finances. Okay, third question. Do I have to be in repayment to be eligible? No. like I said, if you're currently in school and you have in-school deferment, your loans are still eligible as long as they were disbursed before July 1st of 2022. Can I pick which loans get the relief? No, the department is going to have a process for figuring that out. And they will just tell the loan servicers how to do it automatically. Next slide, please. Will the debt relief be taxed? It will not be taxed. Federal income taxes, however, you might be taxed by your state or your municipality. For instance, I think I saw North Carolina announce that they were going to tax this relief. That was a question in the Q&A earlier. If you are applying for PSLF, so far what they've decided is that first you will get the $10,000 or $20,000 in debt relief, and then whenever you meet your 120 payments, then you can get the PSLF discharge. Okay, now this is going to apply for people who their payments were on pause because they had a direct loan during the pandemic, or they had a federally owned FEL loan or a federally owned Perkins loan, and they voluntarily made payments during the pause, right? Because they were like, I'm still employed. I want to keep making progress on my loans while I have zero interest. This is the time to pay off my loans. So if you made payments, then you will automatically get a refund as long as your payment pause brought you under the maximum debt relief that you're eligible to, but did not pay off your loan in full. So for instance, I have a friend who last summer, the pause on interest allowed her to make a lot more progress on her loans, and she paid off her loan in full, even though she could have had them paused. So what she is doing is requesting what it says in the second bullet here. She will not get an automatic refund because she did pay off her loan in full during the pause. So she is having to now request a refund from her servicer. So she's going to request the refund. She'll get her money back. Her loan balance will go back up, and then she can apply for the broad-based debt relief. So that is, it's a little bit tricky here, understanding like all the ifs and ands. But basically, if you made voluntary payments during the pandemic, I honestly would just reach out to my servicer and see if I need to request a refund. And if you don't, especially if you don't notice an automatic refund. Next slide, please. Okay, so next steps. I've kind of alluded to these, but I wanted to lay them out very clearly. So for this $10,000, $20,000 in relief, depending on your Pell history, there's kind of two sets of next steps depending on what type of loans you have. So if you have a federally managed loan, in other words, that was paused during the pandemic, then if you paid off your loan during the pause, then you're going to want to request a refund. Then you're going to fill out the application in October, and they are telling people to apply by November 15th if you want to get that debt relief before the pause ends and payments resume in 2023. If you have a non-federally managed loan, you have not been on a pause the past few years. You have a corporate held FEL loan, a corporate held Perkins loan. The first thing you're going to have to do is consolidate, because now you will owe your debt directly to the government. And then you can fill out the application, which will be available in October. Frankly, even if you consolidated today, if you consolidate, it's going to be, it sounds like from what we're hearing, it's going to be a coin toss as to whether the consolidation goes through in time for you to meet that November 15th deadline. But don't fret. The worst thing that's going to happen is, the relief will come through after the payments resume in January 2023, but the actual application will be open until December 2023. Next slide, please. Okay, and so just here's some additional links. And again, we don't have an application yet to link you to for the $10,000 or $20,000 in debt relief. But that deadline will be at the end of 2023. So there's a lot less pressure here. It's really for the PSLF folks that there's a time pressure. Next slide, please. Okay, and the final thing we want to say is please beware of scams. So anytime, it's kind of like, the the scorpion's tail here coming back to get us. Anytime the government is providing relief, is doing what what you may think is a good thing, this actually creates a great environment for scammers to try and take advantage, because they can pretend to be from someone from the program and get your information and cause you all kinds of problems. They can pretend to be from the program and say, hey, but you gotta pay me money in order to get access. And I just want to be very clear that you never have to pay money for help with your federal student aid, whether it's your loans or anything else. All of these forms that I'm talking about, the consolidation forms, the application forms, they do not cost any money. You do not have to pay anyone to submit them for you. You do not have to pay anyone in order to get access to these forgiveness plans. Here at the Bureau, we've received many complaints for people who were charged by scammers a monthly fee, like a subscription fee basically, in order to get PSLF or teacher loan forgiveness or something like that. That is not true. You do have to make whatever payments you're required to on your loan, but you do not have to make any additional payments in order to gain access to these forgiveness programs. Please work only with your federal loan servicer on these issues, and other reputable sources, such as Selena at the DFPI as your student loan servicing ombuds. And absolutely do not reveal your personal information or account password to anyone. Again, there's been complaints of, I gave this person my password, they were going to help me fill out my forms, and what actually happens is the scammer changes the password so the person no longer has access to their account. Sometimes they submit fraudulent information to the Department of Ed. They let the account go into default. They say, hey, good news, you don't owe any payments. Well, you don't owe any payments because they're lying to you, and you no longer have access to your account to see that you're actually going delinquent, going into default. So really just anyone who reaches out to you, I would say, especially on the phone, texting, calling, anything like that, and rather than talking to them directly, you just hang up and you call your servicer, and you use the number that's on the back of your loan statement or on the website, and then you know that you are actually speaking to someone at your servicer. Next slide, please. Okay, and then if you do run into trouble, there are some places where you can file complaints. One is with the federal student aid at the link here. Like I've mentioned before, the CFPB also receives complaints. What we can do for you with our complaint process is ensure that the company responds to you. So if you're having a problem with a servicer, maybe you're getting mixed messages, you've called different times and different people have told you things that don't make sense together, you can submit a complaint to us and the company will respond to you in writing and hopefully get you some clarity. And then of course, you can complain to DFPI. Next slide, please. Okay.
Okay.
Cool, back to you.
Thank you, Kate. Fantastic job. Really going over a lot of important information. Here is our dedicated question and answer section. I do wanted to go over some information. Seems like there's a lot of questions in the Q&A. So as a reminder, you can check your Pell Grant status on studentaid.gov. It'll have your history of when you were issued a Pell Grant, or if you got a Pell Grant. Also, the broad-based student debt relief, the application for that will be available in early October, according to the U.S. Department of Education. And if you did, again, reiterating what Kate was saying, if you did receive any amount of a Pell Grant, you are eligible for the up to $20,000 in student debt relief. Okay, let's go to some questions. I know there's the question and answer section is pretty off the hook. There's a ton of them here. Can we apply if you have not made 10 years of payments? So this question is probably referring to public service loan forgiveness. Can you apply for the public service loan forgiveness program if you don't have 120 qualifying payments? Absolutely. You can get in there, you can get your waiver started and submit your waiver and get into the public service loan forgiveness program, even if you just have 1 year of public service that you've done. You're at least in the program, and then you're going to start accumulating payments until you reach that 120 qualifying, and then the rest of your balance will be forgiven. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just kind of reading through these. Will student debt relief be applied in any circumstance, or does everyone have to apply? So there's a little bit of confusion here, and Kate or Selena, feel free to jump on. I believe in some certain circumstances, the Department of Education is trying to automatically apply the broad-based student debt relief, but for
Yeah,
the
that's only if they have income data for you on hand for 2020 and 2021. Their website says they have that's the case for about 8 million borrowers. So it sounds to me like if you recertified your income for an income-driven repayment plan for one of those 2 tax years, that's going to be that's who's going to get the automatic relief, is what I'm kind of reading between the lines. If you did not do that, then you will have to apply. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just reviewing that before the webinar.
Yeah, no, perfect. That's what I read too, Kate, and thank you for the reminder. Feel free to interrupt me anytime. I would say, just in case, you should apply. Once the application becomes available, I would not try to wait to be automatically forgiven. Just apply once it is available, especially if you know that you are eligible. Okay. Can you please let me know if 503C organizations qualify as public service? For the most part, yes. So for public service loan forgiveness, if you work for a 503C, you're talking about 503CB, it depends. It really depends. I couldn't speak for sure because there's a lot of, I want to say there's a lot of specific situations. For this situation, I would email the details to Selena Damian. She could look at it and find out. When you're talking about qualifying employers, it's a little bit tricky. For the most part, most 503Cs will qualify. There are certain ones that do certain type of work that may not. Again, I'm not 100% sure on this, but Selena Damian, our student loan servicing buds person who's an expert, she could definitely answer. And her email address is in the slides. Once you get the slides, feel free to email her the details. Is the online app enough to apply for consolidation? When does borrower need to submit additional documents? Is the online application enough to apply for consolidation?
Yes. If you fill out the consolidation application online, that is all you need to do. Something else, sorry, it's been coming up in the Q&A a few times. The application for the broad-based debt relief is not up yet. I can't tell you what's going to be on it. No one has seen it yet. It will not be available until next month. But one thing, I should have put this in my next steps. One thing that everyone should do who's concerned about that application is make sure that your contact information on your studentaid.gov account is up to date, because they will be sending out notifications through that. I think you can even activate like a text notification thing. So I would make sure that your contact info is up to date. And I know when I had student loans before my teacher loan forgiveness paid them off, and I paid them off, I was not that interested in reading like the letters and stuff from my servicer and the emails from my servicer. I kind of ignored a lot of that stuff. But so this is a time, like if you're in that habit, like I was, I know a lot of people are, this would be a time to change that habit. Like pay attention to those communications, especially if you're trying to get in by November 15th so that your debt relief goes through before payments start back up again. Like do everything you can to really be on top of your correspondence with your servicer, with studentaid.gov, because that is going to be the fastest way for you to get access to the application, get access to the information that you need about the application.
100%. And thanks, Kate. Yeah, definitely want to, and regardless, you with the student loan repayment pause ending at the end of this year, you definitely want to go to your studentaid.gov account and update your contact information. So whether it's an address, email, phone number, whatever it is, if something's changed, you definitely, or even if it hasn't changed, just go in and verify that the contact information is correct. So that any kind of new notifications coming to you will get to you, right? Okay, thanks, Kate.
Sorry, can I jump in with one more thing?
Go for
The
it.
person who asked before if their 501c3 would qualify, yes, all 501c3s qualify. There are some other different tax designations those are the ones that are a little bit trickier. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A great place to start is studentaid.gov/PSLF. That's the PSLF help tool, which I think who also linked in the
Slides.
in the presentation. And there's an employer verification function in there, and that's like a good place to start, because maybe your organization is already listed in there and you don't have to go any further. It's already answered. So that's the first place I would start. If they're not listed, that's when I would start. Then you're going to have to do a little bit more work to figure out if you qualify or not. But you can always submit the employer certification form, and that's where you get the determination on whether or not your organization will qualify.
Yep. Yeah. Even if you're in doubt, you're absolutely correct, Kate. Finish the help tool, get employer verification, and then submit your waiver application if that's what you're going for. So submit it in, and so the Department of Education will determine whether the employer is eligible or not. It's based on their tax status more than anything else. Okay, wow, we have a lot of these. And good, we have plenty of time. Great. Okay. Aside from the besides being published on YouTube, will these slides be available? Yes. So this entire recording is going to be published on YouTube. The slides will be emailed to everyone who registered for this webinar. A link to the YouTube video will also be in the email that is sent out to everyone who registered. So will be available. Let's see. Will student debt relief be automatically applied in any circumstance, or does everyone have to apply? Oh, we talked about this. For the most part, I would recommend that you apply regardless. So once the application is available, you should probably apply. Even if it's automatically done, you'll probably get a notification once your loan changes, right? So debt relief is applied to your loan. This is your new balance. You're going to get a notification at least from your student loan servicer, if not the Department of Education. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Is this for a first-time student loan? So I think there's a cutoff date. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Selena or Kate. There's a certain point in time when, okay, for public service loan forgiveness, if you are finishing up school, again, so long as you're working full-time for an eligible employer, you could get into the public service loan for forgiveness whenever. Again, you have to be working full-time for a qualified employer. You can get into the public service loan for program whenever. It might be a little bit weird because if you're still acquiring loans on top of your balance that you owe, right, that might change your income-driven repayment plan. That's just too difficult. But I think the question here is this, it can first-time student loans, like if you just took out a student loan this semester, will student debt relief be applied to it? And I believe, if I read correctly, June 30th.
Yeah, it had to be dispersed before July 1st. The last day was June 30th to be dispersed. So if you had loans dispersed earlier in the summer, those will qualify. If you had a lot of loans for a fall semester dispersed like the first week of classes in August or September, those would not qualify. So if this is your first semester as a student and you didn't get loans until August or September, that's when the funds actually came through. then those loans will not qualify for the $10,000 or $20,000 in loan forgiveness, unfortunately.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kate. Okay, plenty of time, about 4 more minutes. Let's see if we get some more of these questions. Let's see. Wow, that's too detailed. I'm trying not to answer any way detailed questions because they're too specific. So a question just came in: is the Biden-Harris student debt relief taxable? We can't answer this before, but I'll reiterate. It may be. It depends on your state, depends on your local municipality. It might be taxed by your state. As Kate was saying, North Carolina intends to tax their residents for the student debt relief. So it depends. I would say you would want to look it up. From the federal side, they are not going to tax student debt relief. That I know. But the state, it depends. Let's see. I just graduated from out of state university. Can I still apply for loan forgiveness program now that I received all my loans? I deferred my loans. Interesting question. So you just graduated from state university. Can you apply for loan forgiveness program? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the Biden-Harris, the $10,000, $20,000, yes. And being out of state doesn't have anything to do with anything. We're talking about a federal loan forgiveness program here, not a California loan forgiveness program. So that, don't have any concerns about where your university was. Yes, so you can apply for the $10,000 or $20,000 as long as it was all dispersed before July 1st, 2022, which it sounds like it was. And so that'll be it'll come right off your principal. You would not be able to apply for PSLF because you have to make 120 payments.
Yep. Thank you, Kate. And I do want to remind people, especially those who are just graduated, you may not have done this yet, but make sure to go to your studentaid.gov account. And again, update your account information. You definitely want to check on what kind of loan you have, because your loan type is going to affect your eligibility for student debt relief. And also the public service loan forgiveness. So studentaid.gov is kind of the master answer. Go there, find out what kind of loans you have, update your contact information. Especially if you just graduated, your student loan servicer will probably be in contact soon about repayments. And the best thing to do is go to your account, make sure everything is up to date, and figure out what you need to do from there. All right, 1 more minute. Let's do one more question. Kate, let me know if you have any questions you want to answer. There's a lot here.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with getting the typing to happen, but so maybe I can answer some of these live I can't get the typing to work. Okay. Someone asked what's the difference between 503C and 501c3. 503C, I think that's just something that people say sometimes by accident. They probably mean a 501c3, and that is an eligible organization. Someone asked, what if I don't get the refund on the loans that I paid off during the pause? What if I don't get that refund before November 15th? Then you may, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. It depends on how long that refund takes. But there might be a situation where you have to make a payment for a month or something. It's gonna just depend on the timing. Unfortunately, is the best answer I have for you. Unless they create some kind of clarification, which they continue to add details and say that you can go ahead and apply even without the refund. Can you receive a credit for payments made more than the 120? Yes, you can request a refund. I know definitely during the waiver, I'm not sure if that's always true, but it's definitely worth asking. You have 10 years with a PSLF employer, but you just started repayments. Yeah, so those 10 years, the point of the program is to give you credit for the loans for service after you get the loans, right? And after you start repayment. So those 10 years, if you didn't have any loans, you weren't in forbearance or anything like that, you just straight up didn't have the loans, you weren't in repayment, that's unfortunately not going to count towards your PSLF. And then there's one final question here about the disbursement date of a Perkins loan. And I'm not sure how to answer that question because I'm not sure the context. If you're worried about the $10,000 or $20,000 for debt forgiveness, then it would have to be before 2022, I think. They're looking at the original disbursement, and Perkins loans haven't been originated in a few years. So all Perkins loans should be eligible for the broad-based debt relief, if that was your question.
Okay, it's a little past 1. We do have some questions coming in. But I would say if you do have questions that we weren't able to answer or didn't get a chance to ask your question, feel free to email them to us. Hold on, I do want to really quickly go through here. So contacts, here is Kate's information. Kate Mullen, policy analyst for the CFPB. Again, email address if you want to contact her. They have a great mailing list, a newsletter that you could sign up for from the CFPB. Here's Selena Damian, which is the DFPI student loan ombudsperson. Her email address is right here. And we have a mailing list for our newsletter. It's a monthly newsletter. Please sign up for it. The latest information on all the student loan updates, events that are happening, our next webinar, all goes through our newsletter. So please be sure to subscribe. And finally, what to do next. Here's some helpful links to get started on things. I know we don't have time to talk too much about it, but you will get the slides. And I want to say thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Kate, for presenting. You did a fantastic job. And thank you for all the panelists. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.